So if I can put my children in a better place, my family in a better place overall, if I can help individuals, maybe charities, friends, and I'm not saying, for any friend that ever watches this, I'm not going to give you millions or anything like that, because that's not going to happen. But hey.
Hey there, gang, and welcome to another episode of World Class Mindset. And I am very excited to bring into WCM today Theo Pappas. Theo, good to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
Absolutely.
I
Good
appreciate
to have
it.
you. Around 20 years ago, Theo and I met. He's a great guy. He has a sense of humor like few I know. He's loved by a lot of people. He's built an incredible business. Theo was there in the office with a bunch of other folks in management, and I had taken over that operation. Over the period of time, I had a motorcycle accident and I pulled out of New York City for a couple of reasons, and there was a big void there of leadership. Well, Theo stepped up and he became the leader of the entire New York area and region. Theo, you did a much better job than I did, and that as it should be. You want to share a little bit about where it started for you? How old were you at that time, by the way?
When I started here,
Yeah.
I started when I was 31 years old.
31 years old.
Yes, sir.
So if you want to go before that, you can go, or if you want to start it when you were 30. But tell us a little bit about where it all started for you as a kid, maybe growing up. What was it like for you? Where did you grow up? What was your life like?
So I grew up in Queens, in New York City. That's one of the 5 boroughs in New York City, for those of you that are not familiar with New York. And I grew up in an area called Jamaica. That was a middle income, but primarily a lower middle income area.
Did you graduate college? Did you go to school?
I went to high school, correct. I went to a school close for middle school, elementary school close by. I went to high school in an area called Bayside, which was also in Queens. I graduated, went to college, went to a school called RIT, which is up in Rochester, New York, which is very cold. No disrespect to my upstate peeps. But I wouldn't live there. It's very, very cold. I grew up in a little bit more predominant ethnic area. I grew up close to a Greek church. Mostly everyone in my area, a lot of Greeks, some Italians, Latin. It was a little mix match of everybody, to be fair. And it was great. Everybody hung out. Kids were always playing. But I grew up in a single parent household.
Okay.
So
Which parent?
My mom. In my area, you didn't really miss that. Everybody's dad was working 80, 100 hours a week or whatever the case is. So it wasn't like, your friend's dad was over in the park playing catch with you, or their dads were showing up to the games. There was a couple here and there, but most of the time when we played sports or things like that, it was just kind of us, you know what I mean? So,
Very cool.
So it was a great way of growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
So I had a great childhood.
So you had a lot of family in there, right? Cousins and so forth.
A lot of cousins. I lived within walking distance to a couple of family members. We grew up like house next to house.
Yeah.
You know what I
a lot
mean?
like my upbringing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Simple upbringing. So now here you are. You graduate college.
Yes, sir.
What are your dreams at this point? What are you doing? Okay.
So I went to school for commercial printing, but did a minor in communications, and I was going to go into printing, and I did. And I didn't really like it. I had a brother that was in the industry, so he helped me out a lot throughout the years, kind of trying to gear me, and I just didn't have a passion for it, to be fair. When the industry kind of took a hit, I went into finance for a couple of years. I did it. I made a good living, but again, then I just wasn't quite where I wanted to be. So I moved back into commercial printing. I got an offer to come back in.
Because that's what you knew.
That's what I knew, so I fell back to that. And then again, by 31, I was like, I'm done. That's it. I'm moving on. I'm looking for a new opportunity, and that's how I found my way to American and National Income Life.
You hit 30, you say, I'm coming to AIL. Was this something that back then you felt deep down inside eventually was going to happen for you?
Well, when you're younger, your dreams are limited by your environment.
So you didn't have big dreams because you had a limited...
Well, I had big dreams, but big dreams back in the day would have been like, hey, like where I grew up, making $100,000 a year
was a lot.
Was like big money. Making $100,000 when I was younger was like, hey, you could buy a house, you're gonna live good, you're gonna have a nice car. You're not thinking like mansions or, you know what I mean? You're just not thinking because you don't know anyone in that capacity.
Because you're not around that environment.
You're not around it as much, and I was around it a little bit more as I got older. By the time I graduated college, I was around that a little bit more, and what you find, especially in, I can't speak for other cities, but especially in New York, is that someone found a niche in something, someone did something really well, and it worked out for him in a very extreme way.
I feel like we channel here. I met somebody who looked at me and said, I think you can be great at selling. I was living in the back of a van, and I just held on to this guy because this guy believed in me. I didn't believe in me, but this guy did. You know, that big dream, I hadn't been around it, but this guy believed it. Did you have mentors along the road?
You know, I had mentors. I don't know if they knew they were my mentors. You know, I've had a couple. Like, I have uncles that have made impacts on me. My brother, in different ways, had made an impact on me. But I definitely feel that I had a gentleman that was he grew up in Brooklyn. He made his business. He was a lawyer. Made his business out of nothing, and he grinded. So I was inspired by what he did in life to a degree, but also the way he interacted with people, his interaction with people, and how he handled himself. And then obviously on the financial side, he was definitely the first person that I knew that made over $1 million a year.
Wow. So now you meet this guy who's $1 million, and that's the first time.
And this is back in the day when $1 million, like today, maybe like 10 million. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so yeah, it was pretty impactful because he was always down to earth. It was impressive because many people at that time as well, people are very big about what they have, the items, the cars, the bags,
Material things.
Yeah, and you find that people that have money for a bit, or generational money, aren't, they don't need that to really provide them with how they feel about what they are or who they are.
So now many years later, right, you're trying to find your way. You're not really thinking that big. Are you just thinking, if I could make $100,000? But you come to AIL.
Yep.
You start doing okay here. But then as time goes by, you start making a lot more than that. Talk to us about that.
I felt that this was the first opportunity I had that there was potential for money. When you're making $100,000 by working hard, and listen, it's just as easy to not work hard than it is to work hard. Okay, depending on your mindset. When you realized, hey, listen, hey, I can make 300,000, but then you're like, hey, I can make 500. Hey, well, I can make $1 million. I can definitely make more than $1 million. Our industry in general with residuals, it can set you up very nicely as you continue to grind for years to come. Past industries, I loved bonds. I did well in bonds. I just saw that what you needed to do to really, really hit new heights in selling of bonds was you had to immerse yourself in that industry or that lifestyle, so country clubs. And I think that was great. That just wasn't me. That wasn't the direction I wanted to go in personally, and I think at that point in time I decided, no, I'm not willing to do what I need to do to really excel in that industry, and that's when I made a decision to move out, because I was just like, no disrespect to it, people love it. And when I found this opportunity, which was helping individuals like myself that might come from any nationality. My background's European. Okay, my parents are from Greece. My mother literally came over on a boat. My dad also came on a boat. So they came over with nothing, and like many other parents. So I relate to every migration that we've had come into our country, because my parents went through the same thing, and I'm a child of immigrants. You know what I mean? Like, some basics within immigrant life is very basic. Like, we got to work, we got to survive, we have to pay the bills. Like, there's no option in that. Like, you know what I mean? We're not giving up now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that general intensity on do you work? Of course you work. Like, what do you mean you don't work? Like, and don't get me wrong, within every nationality and within every culture, you have those individuals that, are on the couch and you're throwing like cans of peas at them or something to get up or something. I mean, that can really exist in any nationality. But I think the true immigrant and children of immigrant mentality is, hey, American dream is amazing, but it's going to start with you waking up and executing on a daily basis to make sure that we can get to the next chapter. You know what I mean? And how big that goes depends on where you're at, what opportunities you have, because to be fair, in the immigrant community, there aren't a lot of opportunities. Any of those things can really explode into, any kind of a very successful type of arena. However, those opportunities are few and in between, and there's also people that take the shot, they take those opportunities, and unfortunately, they don't work out, because you risked it all. That's the mindset that I came into any business that I approached with. But I had the luxury of kind of being, to be fair, thanks to my parents, I had the luxury of kind of being like, well, I don't really know if I want to get into this, so I'm going to try something else. When they came over, they would have been locked into sometimes
Forever.
whatever they got in. Like, that's it. That's what
Right.
you're going to do for the rest of your life. You're going to be doing this, whatever it is. So I did have that luxury.
So they gave you the room to try and
Correct.
experiment, and they
Absolutely.
supported you with that.
Well, listen, I grew up in a lower middle income area. So I'm going to tell you, very few people in my neighborhood went to college. Now, that doesn't gauge their success, because some were extremely successful, some have had extreme successes, and then their industries got hurt. Some kind of made their way by, and some went sideways, right? With that being said, though, growing up my entire life, my mom was always like, "You're going to college." So I always, in my head, always said, like, "I'm going to college."
going to college.
Even when my friends are like, "What do you know?" "Well, I'm going to
Go to
college."
college.
"Well, I'm going to go to, I don't know what college." I never really rebelled against that because I wanted to do it. My mom is
Right.
a very humble person. She didn't see it until probably, because I lived very modestly for a number of years until my daughter was about to go to kindergarten. Bought a house.
Into a nicer neighborhood, bought a nice
nicer
big
neighborhood, better school district. So
And her eyes opened up. "Yo, son,
So that
what's
was a little different. Yes, that was like
How did
that.
she-
That changed the chapter. I think not just for my mom, but my family, your friends, because nobody kind of knew. Like, when you live in a lower middle income area, which is where I lived, and two of my older children were born in that area. And their houses are nicer than yours. They don't really know what
How
you're
do
doing.
you manage that? I want everybody who's listening, because
Yeah.
you are so genuine and so beautiful. I'm loving this. How do you manage that, going from that to the life now?
Well, it's simple when you're in that position, because if you own a business, for any business owners out there, most of your money goes back into your business. Okay, and that's the problem.
Where'd you get that from? So you come from working class, and now you're talking about you're an entrepreneur.
Correct.
In the way
So,
you think. Would you?
Well, the thing is always try to, like, what I learned is always, like, inherently, like, we lived below our means, or our means were very low. So you wanted more, like, big treats for me as I got older and started making money were buying clothes, buying nicer clothes, which was not an option when I was younger. Living, within your means. To be fair, I learned in this business a great deal. Until then, I was grinding. You make 100,000, it's good money. But in New York, that can dissipate. So I think the approach to life is just, don't go too crazy. Because listen, I lived in a lower middle income area, right? So as I said, some immigrant parents, some just did well and went sideways. So I have friends, dads that their business then took off while we were living there, and they went from my own uncle, God bless, very, very successful man. He doesn't realize all his success till later, because those early years were a grind, and for most of them grind. But now it's like, hey, I have a property that's maybe worth $5 million. Oh, by the way, I have a business that's producing $1 million or $2 million a year in revenue. But they didn't move. They didn't change, because they were like old school, right? So they
Like
were just,
Rappaport.
that's what they
Never
did.
moved.
They just showed up every day. They didn't know how much they had. That money's really, are they experiencing it? Sure, they had a nicer car, maybe a nicer cigar. They just kept going.
What keeps you motivated? What keeps you
So
grinding?
let's be specific on that, okay? So, not work for the rest of your life. I guess it depends on what your goals are and what your approach to life is, okay?
Sure.
So it is the mindset, right? So
Totally.
this whole show is about
That's
the
it.
mindset. If you're in a position to maximize an opportunity, I think failure is not taking advantage of that opportunity, and I think success is maximizing that opportunity. So the distance between failure and success is your approach to that opportunity, your intensity to that opportunity, and then how do you max it out? Because as you max it out to 100%, you sacrifice, right? So there's failure, there's success, and then there's you're doing well, right? And then as you move up, you're getting closer to very high levels of success. But the individuals that we know, there's a sacrifice for that. So that's the balance. Everyone's like, well, how do you find your balance? Well, your balance is tied into you as an individual, right? Your balance is tied into, well, where do you want to be goal-wise? My goals, and it sounds like it has to do with finance or money, or you don't leave with it. I see all these assets. I see people come and talk to me all the time. You don't leave with the stuff. You don't die with it. Someone told me this crazy story. I knew this guy who's really successful, and he got cancer, and he was like, what good is all my money? Well, that's great, but what does that mean? Does that mean you should now go live in the middle of the woods? Like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go live in the woods because I have enough money and I'm going to live my life and enjoy my life. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but why can't you do a little of both? My mother was not in an opportunity to be able to even make $100,000 a year. So now I find myself in an opportunity to make, millions, conservatively, and very respectfully and humbly. And I feel it's a disservice to my family not to at least approach that opportunity and attack it to a different degree. I think what it's really about is the fact that I have this opportunity. Do I just say, hey, I don't want it now? So if I can put my children in a better place, my family in a better place overall, if I can help individuals, maybe charities, friends, and I'm not saying, for any friend that ever watches this, I'm not going to give you millions or anything like that, because that's not going to happen. But hey, I can pick up dinners for them. I can take them out. I can take families out. Whatever the case is, I can have my family enjoy more opportunities as well as more experiences in life. Then I believe that that's failures when I don't take advantage of that opportunity. And then, but again, there's a balance. So the balance really becomes, when are you ready to then start enjoying it more? But I have to truthfully say, like, if I got deathly sick tomorrow and I was gonna, only have 6 months to die, would you have done things differently? You're always going to want to do things differently in one way or another, for sure. But I think in general, no, because my general approach was always to provide a better opportunity for my family. Okay, and specifically for my children. It's very basic. It's a very basic mindset. I grew up with a very basic mindset of you need to work, we need to survive, we need to make it to the next chapter, because we saw plenty of families that struggled and then went the other way, right?
And so what keeps you going? That's where I wanted to go with this. What keeps you moving? Obviously, to provide for your family, to provide for your children, provide for the neighborhood, to give charity, to help somebody out. Are these the things that continue to motivate you today, Theo?
They do, and I think that at any age, I'm at an age which is kind of weird as well. I've had later success in life, right? I wasn't blowing up at 30, but I think your focus and your goals are different at different ages as well. I really became an agency owner where I took full financial responsibility for my actions as an owner at, shoot for a bit, like in my late 30s.
Late 30s.
Yeah, so with that being said, that changes, but what keeps me going? I think there has to be... What
keeps you going?
Well, there has to be a decision at a certain time, especially as you get older, but even younger, like, am I going to do this?
Do you love what you do? Is that important?
I love the people.
I can tell you like
So I love the people. The people aspect of my business is amazing. The things that bear on you are the day-to-day financial responsibilities of what you do and the position that you take, because, listen, you're accepting that. So there's no violins playing at all. You accept the position as an owner. You accept the responsibilities of everything that comes with an owner, depending on how large or small your organization is, depends on how big your problems are financially, how big your problems are as far as even personally, but personally it can be the same stuff. See, that's the difference too, right? Like, when you think about the guy running the business that's making $100,000 a year and the guy running the business making $5 million a year, their problems are different. However, their impact on the families are the same. You know what I mean? Meaning they both might be pulled away from their families at different points in time because they're focusing on the business, which keeps the family going. And I know that's an extreme, but again, it goes full circle back to me of, well, I have an opportunity to excel in an industry that I'm able to excel in. So why not excel when I can to provide a better opportunity? Is there an end game? Do I have this magic number? There's no magic number. When I talk about an amount of money, it's not something I'm really going to enjoy, right? It's really for my kids. But do I think that I could build 100 million in assets by the time I tap out? Yeah, I think I can. Now, is it that I make it to 50 and then hopefully my children will take that to 100 between them? Yeah, it's not about the money that you make or the car that you drive or the house that you're in. It's about trying to maximize any opportunity that you have. One of the sayings is that money doesn't make you better, it just gives you more options in life, right? More vacations, better health care, because the other alternative is just spending it. I'm going to buy expensive cars, I'm going to buy huge houses, and I'm not saying, but so I'm kind of like in the middle of all that.
Yeah, I can tell.
You know what I mean? I don't want to be at 100% where I have no time for my family. However, I taper that to a degree to balance out what I think is important to me.
Love that part.
You know what I mean?
Love that part, Theo, because you're not just driven for the quote 100 mil, although I can see it in your eyes and I know you that that's could be fun, but you're not going to go for it at the sacrifice of your family. I know how close you are to your children, to your wife. Talk about that.
A gentleman within our company who does extremely, extremely well, told me years ago, when I was first getting into my family and, kids are now being born and, just don't miss those events. Don't miss going to the doctor with your wife to do the sonogram. Don't miss the birthday party. If you can, obviously you're out of town, but when you're there, like try to be there if you can. Try to organize your schedule to be there because it's important to your spouse. It's important to the kids. And if you can make it happen, make it happen. And then years later, I got another nugget from an individual, again, in our business that did well to me because that's who I'm socializing with mostly. And it's when you're present, try to be present. So if you're at a birthday party, like be at the birthday party. Like don't be at the birthday party
and on your
for
phone.
an hour and you're on the phone for half an hour putting a fire out outside. Like it has to be like, hey, I need an hour. I can't
now. Life
yeah,
is,
and it's everybody's struggle. I'm not going to say I don't struggle with it. When you're into what you're doing and you're intense about what you do, it's hard. It's difficult.
You're very aware of it.
Listen, different circles. I'm around individuals that really succeed at very high levels, but it takes them time. On Wall Street, it takes time. They're not making millions and millions off the bat. They worked their way up, and now they're the CFO of this company that blew up, and now they're making $5 million a year, $10 million a year. Forget about the guy that sold something for $300 million or $500 million, but how about the guy making 40, 50? Am I traveling their circles? No. And I'm fine with that.
But
I'm okay.
Know some of these people, don't
I've met them, and God bless. There's nothing wrong with them. Maybe,
How important it is to be? Isn't it important to be around them though to get their mindset, Theo? A little bit.
I will tell you this. So I always love speaking to them to just see how they did it because I'm in a smaller version, right? So if they're doing something, it's almost like my company. When my company's doing something, they're putting a lot of money in to figure this out. I want to look at what I'm doing on a smaller position. So if someone has $300-400 million, and I'm like nowhere close to that, but I see him doing something or thinking about something. I'm not talking about investments, but the way he's approaching certain things legally,
attitude,
mindset and approach. Yeah. But people figure out pretty quickly in those arenas, like where you're at by talking to you. You know what I mean?
And don't they want to share? I mean, I've always found something, right? They want to share, so you're not afraid to.
Well, because they don't get the questions a lot. There could be someone with great life experience and suggestions, but because they're pumping your gas, you don't listen to them. You have someone that's worth $300 million and you think they know everything, and sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. They are willing to share. They don't get the questions much, you know what I mean? Like they're not, so I have no problem asking certain, but it's not questions about how did you make your money, how are you going to make your next million. See, I want to know the other side, like what do you do to spend time with your children? What do you do for vacations?
Right.
I had one gentleman again, in our company that would tell me that he would not take his family anywhere where there was not good medical care. But I lock on to these nuggets of, make sure that you live below your means. That was like a main one that I always kind of took away from myself, from business in general. And the other one is, just last. You got to just last. It's not going to be overnight. So you're going to have ups and downs. I know for, knowing you for 20 years that both of us had ups and downs in our business. Yep. And it's not about the ups. It's about making it through the downs so that you can go back up. And that's where people crash. Where is your lifestyle when you're having your peak? And then where's your lifestyle financially when you're at your valley? So if you're working at, hey, my peak, my lifestyle is $10 million a year, but your valley you're only making $2 million a year. So now people are borrowing to make it through that valley, and they don't change their lifestyle because again they can't accept failure because their failure is, hey, I can't turn in my Bentley or my Rolls Royce to get a Chevy because that's failure. I can't stop buying or going out to the restaurant and spending $5,000 a night, you know what I mean, to go to a modest restaurant of a couple of hundred because that's failure. And I believe that in business, you need to always readjust to make sure you can make it through those valleys because if you don't, that's how you bury yourself and your family. And at the end of the day, if you now are not in that, you're not always in an opportunity to excel in business. I have a friend in textiles. This industry got decimated. Yellow cabs. I mean, to be fair, right. I mean, decimated, right? Like,
Uber
for those
killed them, right?
Yeah, well, for those of you that don't know, you'd buy a medallion back in the day, like for $1 million.
$1 million bucks.
Those
right.
are worth like $65,000 now.
So if you bought it for $1 million,
what if you bought it a couple of years before it went from $1 million to like $100,000 and then $60,000? You're in a tough situation, right? So you have to make it through those lulls. Now it might be you grinding, but you got to be ready to do that. So what it keeps it going for me, Eric, going full circle with my ADHD, and I apologize.
No, I love every minute of it.
Well, it's the fact that you have to make a decision at some point of where you want to be. Do I want to do this? Because things are going to test you. The business is going to test you. Your people are going to test you. And you need to make a decision, like, just like anything else in life. Do I want to do this or not? Because I gotta make a decision, because, you know, if you're in something like a relationship, for example, and you don't want to be there, but you haven't made a decision if you're in or out, it's very apparent to everyone around you. So now the pressure starts, and they're going to start tightening the screws. So you need to know, you know, not so much for me, but I believe a lot's on social media today. I think that what you see is not what you get today, which is very difficult. I believe that it's more difficult today to know
What's real?
Yeah, who are your true friends? You know, who's really loyal? Well, it's not about, you know, who's with you when you're up. It's about, you know, people with you when you're down, right? Good sportsmanship, you know, those types of things. You know, there's different levels of loyalty. But I think today, just knowing who people are is difficult. You know, to be fair though, there's a lot more opportunity today in, you know, obviously different industries. But I don't feel it's so different than when we were younger. You know, when we were coming up, Eric, when we were younger, the IT industry was just blowing up. So there were lawyers and people going, I'm going to be a lawyer and a doctor then. Today, it's just different industries. But I believe, is the opportunity better today? I think it's different. I think you have to approach it differently. It's the ability to be able to say, hey, you know, a lot of these speakers, you know, hey, I want to do this on social media, and I could do my own podcast. I don't need millions of dollars of investments. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to sell this product. But no matter what you do, it's going to take dedication. It's going to take you saying, hey, I'm going to make this happen. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's not enough. Yeah, I mean, you started young. I started when I was 31, going on 32. I started at
21.
You know, so you were in this forever. So you've kind of seen it, and you've had failures and successes in our industry, in our business for years and decades, and it's changed over time. You know, I came in 31, and, you know, were there missed opportunities prior? Sure. Do I feel this is probably one of the best opportunities that I've been in, bar none? Yes, because even when I look back at different, you know, opportunities that I had, if I maximize those, could I have done what I did today? And I think that one of them I could have, but most of the other ones, no. So this was really an opportunity for me to be able to excel. And to be fair, I never thought about it. You know, you really just have to be humble in certain ways and be careful. And you, because you respect entrepreneurs. You know, and some people make it and some people don't. But you respect the guy that took the shot compared to the guy that didn't take the shot. And to be fair, I'm at a funny age, forget about your age, but my age is like 54, right? So at 55, 30, guys are tapping out. Yeah. And they're excited about, and they should be, $120,000 a year in a pension. I think that's amazing. Not working and getting $120,000 a year. Our industry is just different. You know, $10,000 a month, up to $100,000 a month, up to, we have a mutual friend at over $1 million a month, you know, and I think those are the fruits of our labor. And those will help us down the road. And I don't think that, you know, it's hard for someone else to really relate to that unless they have passable income that might be invested in either a business or in real estate. And the goal for us is always to see what we can do to maximize it. Or you can do the other way and just sit back and enjoy it. And no one's to say that you don't deserve that. There was a guy in our business, and I remember he was retiring, and I asked him, and I said, you know, his name was Larry, and I said, Larry, you know, when do you know? And he's like, you're going to know. You know, and he said he was never going to retire, but then he retired, and he was, because, like, you know, he retired at 70, though.
Theo, I am so excited to have listened to you here. What would you say, Theo, to everyone watching this broadcast who maybe has a dream, they feel stuck where they are?
Listen, and hopefully, you know, everyone's got issues, everybody's got problems. Let me start by saying that. Everyone's got challenges in relationships and family, and, you know, and I'm not talking about bad stuff. Everybody deals with life. Life is life. Right. I think for individuals, everyone likes what they're good at, but life's about finding what you're good at. You know, if I'm doing this and this is putting food on the table, then I got to do that. And I'm going to be as good as I can on that as I try to figure out, is there anything else that I'm good at? My basis for everything that I've ever done was communication. It was sales. It was communication. People. It was servicing clients. And so it was always people. I feel that, you know, what we do now excels that. So I think if you can find what you can excel at, what you like, and then, you know, hopefully be lucky enough to find a way for you to be able to maximize your skills in an opportunity that provides you success, I think, you know, I think that's amazing. You know, regardless of how big your tree is, you're never going to know how big it is when you start it. So just love it, water it, take care of it. And, you know, as long as you find that that's where you're going to be at, I think that that'll help you as you go through life. And hopefully that's an opportunity that you
Sounds
love.
to me like that is your definition of success. Find something you can love to do, and then keep watering it and keep grinding it, whatever it is. How do you define failure?
Failure, not maximizing the opportunity that you have in front of you.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think, Theo, this was an incredible broadcast. Thank you so
Thanks.
much for coming on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
so
inviting me.
much. Good
Thank
to
you.
have you here.
Appreciate
my
you.
friend. Great
Thank
to
you,
have you. There it is, little wrap.